On today's Hot Zone, we're going to talk to Art Del Cueto, Border Patrol agent since 2003, about what's going on the U.S. southern border and what might happen during a Biden administration. That's coming up right now. So my good friend Art Del Cueto, it's good to see you again, my friend. It's been a long time. I am very curious about, first of all, what is going on the U.S. southern border. I haven't been down there in probably 6 months. And maybe a little less than that. And I understand that I saw this report recently from a whistleblower in El Paso saying that all of the ambulances in El Paso are being taken up transporting COVID patients from the international bridge to hospitals in El Paso. Tell me what you know about that.
Okay, so we had people down there that they were working at the time, and they absolutely have told us that it's getting pretty rowdy down there with the amount of COVID cases that are coming across. And it's not even just COVID cases. I think some of the issues is people experience certain symptoms, so then they're going to come across the COVID test takes some time. So, I mean, it gets swarmed with those individuals. And that's some of the issues. But by all means, what we have been hearing is El Paso is the center point where we're having most of these types of cases happening right now.
So how does that affect Border Patrol agents as they're picking up people that are coming across the border illegally and coming through the ports of entry? What have you seen as far as those guys being affected by COVID?
You know, some of the issues is obviously they're being exposed to those types of diseases, and that's something that comes with the job. But at the same time, this is something new to a lot of people. It's a pandemic. And what that causes is when you have an agent that's exposed, well, now he has to take quarantine days. So now you have that extra body that you could be using out there to defend our nation's borders. They're having to take those 14 days. And they're going home, and now it's affecting their family at home. So it's just a chain of events that's happened. And a lot of it is just, these people that are crossing the border illegally. Now there's a group of people that cross legally, obviously, and they ask for medical attention. And I think that clouds the system too. But when it comes to the individuals that are just crossing illegally, they're not taking much precautions. A lot of these individuals, obviously, they're coming across. They're not wearing any type of mask. They're just trying to, get here. When agents are trying to catch them, they run. As we've spoken many times before, a lot of times they want to fight. So you have now that close quarter interaction. So it's different, and it's not getting any better.
Right.
It's gotten a little bit worse lately. I can tell you that.
Well, I saw recently that just in the last week, they had an agent that was assaulted when he was trying to apprehend 5 people down on the Texas border. And they were able to successfully apprehend those guys. He was only lightly injured. But as you say, it highlights the risks that the agents are facing down there. Now, I also saw an exclusive report from valleycentral.com, or it's a local 23 in Brownsville, saying that they're seeing an increase in abandoned infants, toddlers, and children at the border. What do you know about that? Anything?
So, look, this is what, and I'm glad you asked these questions because I think they're important, and not enough people are looking into it. And they don't get, there's a humanitarian aspect of it also. At the end of the day, I think the agents that are out there working each and every day, they're the number one humanitarian organization in the world because they are coming across a lot of kids that have been abandoned. They're coming across injured individuals that are crossing the border illegally, obviously, but I mean, they're injured. And, the men and women that are out there working, they go out of their way to help these people. You're going to hear some members of the media that are not going to touch those stories. And when I've spoken about them, I've flat out have been told by members of the media, hey, that story is not controversial enough. It won't sell. But it's the reality. And I think it shortchanges some of the things that agents are doing. Now that we believe there's going to be a new administration, I think what they have caused with their rhetoric on the media about, hey, we're going to stop building the wall. We're not going to be deporting anyone for the first 100 days and what have you. What that has created, it's created a very dangerous magnet for a lot of individuals that have committed crimes in their country to now know that they can come here as a free-for-all. Under the President Trump administration, we had authority to be able to not streamline, but I would say be thorough in some of these individuals that were either claiming asylum or actually had some kind of case to come in the United States, and they were being told to wait in their country. So all of a sudden, amazingly enough, the asylum claims stopped, which I believe a lot of them were not true asylum cases. But now, when you have that mass rhetoric from an administration saying, we're not going to deport, we're not going to send back, what does that create? It creates a magnet of people that are just going to want to cross into the country legally, knowing that there's an administration saying, if we catch you, we'll release you into the United States. You don't have to worry about, getting sent back. And as history has shown us, a lot of those individuals never show up to their immigration court. I think it's very dangerous moving forward, especially when you're talking about a pandemic. And just to put things into perspective, we have politicians out there, and I don't care if you're on the right side or left side of the aisle. To me, it doesn't matter. I believe defending our nation's borders is not a certain party's agenda. It shouldn't be, at least. Everyone deserves to be safe at their home, and everyone deserves their country to be protected, regardless of where you stand. But what we're seeing is a lot of these individuals on one side of the aisle, when they start promising these things, I believe they put lives of Americans in danger, because now you're getting these individuals that are going to cross illegally, knowing they're going to get released. They're not going to go to hospitals at times. They're going to be working. They live, 30 plus in a 1-bedroom apartment. And that's a whole other story. I think that's modern day slavery as far as I'm concerned, and they're okay with it. But now you're going to get these people with not just COVID. Let's talk about hepatitis. Let's talk about tuberculosis. And all that is getting spread without being properly screened. I think it's just extremely, extremely irresponsible of a lot of politicians to create that magnet and open up those doors.
It always amazes me that politicians act like their rhetoric is not going to affect the number of people who are coming to the United States. But when you start talking about reinstating DACA or putting in some sort of asylum, especially for children, I think you immediately see this increase in abandoned infants and toddlers at the border. Because if I come in as a parent and I bring a kid with me because I thought it was going to help me get in more easily, and I'm finding out that they're sending me back to Mexico and making me wait in Mexico, I'm just going to put a phone number on my kid's shirt and throw him across the wall and try to get somebody else to take care of that kid if I'm going to be stuck in Mexico or have to go back. It's unbelievable to me that politicians act like this is not happening. You and I have seen it happen in real time. And there's no doubt that under a Biden administration, we are going to see a wave like we have never seen before of people, not just from Latin America, but from all across the world coming up through the southern border.
Chuck, we're already seeing it. I'm telling you right now, we've seen groups as large as 300 that are staging south, getting ready to cross, already staging there. And I'm going to tell you something, and you touched a great point when it comes to these children. You'll hear in the news the abandoned kids that we keep separating. No, these are kids that came across without their parents. Their parents separated them right off the bat. Mm-hmm. When I go to the grocery store and I can't find my child, I panic. And I'm going to do everything I can to try to find my child if I can't find her in one of the aisles. These are kids that have been separated from their parents for years. Where are their parents? Why haven't the parents gone to the consulate office and asked, hey, I'm missing my child? That's where the responsibility lands, I believe. And what we see, because we've seen it in the past, is you'll have parents that have several kids. The wife will cross with one child, knowing that there is a law that says we can't detain them more than 21 days, knowing they'll get released. And then later on, the father will cross with another child. That's one scenario. The other scenario is we'll have people that don't have children, but they will rent a child. People are down there renting these kids. So no fault of the child, of course, right? The separation of children, I think, is a humongous, humongous deal. And we should try and do everything in our power to try to find the parents. But a lot of these times, those parents are the ones that abandoned the child in the first place. Those parents are the ones that they rented their child to a smuggling organization, whether it be human smuggling or drug smuggling, in order so they can get their product across. And then they got paid. And a lot of times those children were abandoned afterwards.
I think it's hard for most Americans to understand that actually happens, to wrap their head around that. But you and I have both seen it. I've seen parents renting their kids on at borders all across the world for things like that. They rent their kids in Colombia and Venezuela on that border because you can't cross the bridge without a child. It's unbelievable. They'll actually take their kid around. They make a business out of it. They pass their kid along across the border, across the river, and send them back up to the edge of the bridge. Rent them out to somebody so they can cross the bridge and get their kid back and do it again and again. It's really incredible. You and I would never imagine doing such a thing, but that is actually fairly common. If whoever our next president is,
right?
What is tell me what the status is of the border barrier project now in most places? Have we covered most of the places that needed it the worst, or are there still massive gaps in that project?
No, there's obviously still gaps in different areas. You know, I'm out here in Arizona, and I can tell you, just in Arizona alone, the Tohono O'odham Reservation which is a Native American reservation.
Yeah.
There's about 60 plus linear miles there where it's limited fencing. But the last administration did a fantastic job of placing a better barrier in a lot of the areas where it was needed. So there's certain areas that, just makes more sense to have. There's a lot of areas along the border where there's natural barriers, and you can funnel more agents there, use your resources wisely. But you know what? This is going to happen. And I'm just going to say it here because the media is going to say it later on. They're going to turn around and say President Trump didn't do enough and that he promised and he didn't do enough of the wall. But I can tell you this: in the areas that it has been placed, the numbers of illegals has gone down tremendously. And at the same time, there's areas where there was already a so-called barrier, right? Mm-hmm. And the way they describe a barrier is anything that divides or is a marker. Right. But those areas at times were five strands of barbed wire.
Right.
Sometimes it was just the Normandy barriers where people could just walk around. Those areas, yes, there was a barrier, but it was hardly a barrier. Yes, there's so much better structure there. I honestly, when I hear these people talk about this, and I know it's silly of me to even bring up, but I believe people need to go back to school and read the story of the Three Little Pigs and realize what barriers are actually better than others.
That's good. And I've talked to a couple of ranchers out there who are really worried because they were building that new barrier from both directions, moving toward their ranch, and they haven't finished it yet. And if they don't, now there's a giant funnel and all of the traffic will be coming right through their ranch. They're going to be really worried about that.
You hear that and you say, well, I don't have a crystal ball, but in this instance, I can tell you, I grew up on the border. I live on the border. I was raised on the border. I've worked on the border my entire life. That is actually what is going to happen. That will create a funnel for illegal drug trafficking and illegal trafficking of human beings, which, as I said earlier, I compare it to modern day slavery. And the problem that we are having is we have drug cartels that take advantage of that. Drug cartels take advantage when they send human loads into the United States so they can get their drug product across. And we're not saying the mom and pop, hey, let's send some marijuana. We're seeing fentanyl, heroin, and cocaine make a rise and cross illegally international borders.
Yep, absolutely. Bart Del Cueto, thank you very much for your time today. That's all the time we've got on the Hot Zone. I really appreciate you and the work that you've done for, 20 years working
pretty close.
With the Border Patrol. Yeah, 18 years since.
I did some time.
You started with the Border Patrol the same time I started as a war correspondent, so I can keep track of your progress.
Well, I've been a while in law enforcement. It's been a while. I worked the maximum security prison for quite some time for the state of Arizona. And now I'm here in this role, and I think it's important. And as I always said, I don't speak on behalf of the agency. I speak on behalf of the National Border Patrol Council, because we're going to tell you the truth. We're not going to sugarcoat it.
Yep, absolutely. And that's why it's really good to have somebody like you out there, somebody who isn't beholden to the public affairs office, who can actually tell it like it is. So thank you very much.
Thank
Always
you.
Appreciate your commentary. Thanks.